Right then, ladies and gentlemen, are we ready for our first speaker of the afternoon? Right, hang on a minute. So, my sister-in-law has just gone out on her own with Baker Brands, her branding company, and she stayed until 3 o'clock this morning because she knew I was going to give her a plug today to make sure her website was shit hot, so when you looked at Baker Brands, you saw what it was. She's got the brief. Claire, are you ready for our next speaker? Yeah! Right, ladies and gentlemen. It works, if you give the energy, you get it back, okay? This lady was voted by Southwest Insider in the top 42, under 42. She kicked off and they went, well actually, you're in the top 30 under 30. She's that good. She owns the, I'll get it right, the Arima agency. And an interesting fact about her is she owns roller skates but cannot roller skate herself. Can you all really raise the roof, much like my sister-in-law, for Joyann Boyce, I forgot for a moment.
Is this on? Yes, it is.
It is. It's coming. Yeah. It's coming.
It's coming. The slides are coming. Yeah, so the roller skating thing, right? I turned 30 and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I said I was going to do it. Bought the roller skates, fell down once, couldn't get back up in the middle of a park, so I had to take them off and crawl to the corner. Yeah, so, but anyway, that's not what I'm going to talk about. So before I get started, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever had to build a website by yourself. Raise your hand if you have ever used a stock photo. That should be everyone. All right, cool. Now, raise your hand if you could not find a stock photo that looks like you. Got two, all right. There's 2 people. We're about to go on a journey. How does that work? So, 2018, that was me. I was building a website for my business, a social media marketing agency, and I wanted to find a stock photo that looked quite like this one, because I was building my own company, I was broke, it had to be free. The problem I came across was I could not find this photo in 2018. I could not find a pair of hands on a keyboard that looked like mine. And for anyone who hasn't noticed, I am a black woman, a beautiful black woman. So the hands needed to be of a black woman. Couldn't find it. And I'm like, what is going on? Stock photos have been around as long as we've been fucking up the internet, so why can I not find this? And I just decided to create it. So I ended up creating my own portfolio of stock photos in order for me to get free stock photos for my website. A long way to get to the end point, but you know, we got there in the end. So who am I? My name is Joyann Boyce. I am an inclusive marketing consultant. And over the past 5 years, I've worked with some amazing companies, helping them to build inclusive content, to understand everything I'm about to tell you. But the one thing I want you guys to make me a promise today, keep a question in your mind, because we're going to have a lot of time for questions, and I want to make this as useful and as helpful for everyone in the room as possible. So I said I was an inclusive marketing consultant, but what is inclusive marketing? Now, again, let's take a trip back before the pandemic. 5 years ago, inclusive marketing was all-inclusive. So, you know, they sell you everything in the kitchen sink, or an all-inclusive holiday, everything and free alcohol. That's watered down, but anywho. But now, inclusive marketing, as defined by Salesforce, is creating content that represents diversity within the audience you serve. Now, I switched this up a tiny bit because it's understanding a little bit more about your own audience. Whoever you're targeting, whoever that would be, whatever audience that is, there's diversity within that. And the only caveat I would say from Salesforce, and try and make it a bit fruity, I'm going to take it back to marketing. We're talking about marketing here. Everyone is not your customer. I hate when clients say that, because I'm like, not everyone likes your bread, and not everyone will like your products that you over-explain in 50,000 words when I ask you for 50 for a tweet. But inclusive marketing is about understanding how diverse your own audience is and marketing to them. So when we think about the UK population, because that's where we are, there's 67 million people in the UK. However, a lot of the marketing that we put out, a lot of the content we create doesn't serve the demographic in this. When you think about this room alone, the majority of us, I've tried to count my stats off, the majority of us are women. But how much of the content do we see when we're the lead character, or is that represented and they're spoken about in a positive light? And when you think about other intersections, such as ethnicity, disability, the LGBT community, and over 65 and disabled community, how much are they represented in content, in campaigns? How much are they targeted? Because at the end of the day, disabled people want to fuck, drink alcohol, and buy lingerie. Do we see them in the campaigns? No. And we should. But I want to identify, sorry, I took a shot before I came on stage, that wasn't a good idea. It was vodka, by the way, it's really good. I want to identify the difference between diversity in marketing and inclusive marketing. Now, diversity in marketing is a lot what the community, the marketing sector has been focused about. That is about hiring talent. That is about having diverse company values. That is about making sure your team is diverse in many ways. However, inclusive marketing is led by the marketing team itself, focusing on the content you create, the copy you write, the campaign, who you're targeting, the analytics you're collecting. Now, inclusive marketing can be done by a team that's not diverse, because at the end of the day, you're supposed to be understanding your audience. A diverse team will make it better, but it's not required. And it needs to also align with company values. Because one thing you don't want to happen is you create inclusive campaigns and your company don't understand the connection. So if anyone has seen the gender pay gap bot, did anyone stumble upon this year? I love this little bot, it's so fun. But a lot of marketing companies missed the opportunity. So for anyone who didn't see it, this bot took the government data about gender pay gaps within companies which they have to report, and anytime a company tweeted about International Women's Day, it would say what their pay gap was along with their tweet. Now, this might terrify some companies because the gap was shit, as it always is. But they missed the opportunity for transparency here. Like, for example, Ryanair, their gap is 62% lower for women. Yeah. So don't, if you're a woman, you know. Anyways, not selling for Ryanair. But that data was from a year ago. Ryanair had an opportunity with that tweet to be like, we celebrate women and we're looking to improve this. A lot of the companies completely ignored it or deleted it. And that's misalignment between the company values and the marketing. And that misalignment is missed opportunity for so many things. Because once you have that alignment with the company values and your marketing, you can increase revenue. The spending power of the over 65s, the LGBT community, the Asian and Black community within the UK is great. And if you're completely missing an audience that is already interested in your product but you're not talking to them, what's going on? And it's also an opportunity to spark creativity. Because as a marketing team, if you're putting out the same content over and over again, it can get a bit boring. But once you've given a little challenge, a little spice, a little seasoning, like the chicken did not have, you get to spark creativity. You get to really understand other ways to create that campaign, to put together. If that Facebook ad is running lame or it's not inspiring clicks, how else can you incorporate different communities? How else can you speak to other people? And expanding that audience leads back to that increased revenue. Now, I could come up here and be like, you should do it because it's good, because we care. Yeah, but we're marketers. We need to make money for the company to pay our jobs. Do it because it makes money. Increase the revenue, increase creativity, and reach a wider audience. And there's so many ways you can do that. So, I want to take a minute. Everyone close your eyes. Keep your hands to yourself, but close your eyes. And I want you to imagine the Gillette man. The Gillette razor. The man who uses that razor and goes through his day and he's like, yeah, I am a Gillette man. Hold that image in your mind. Okay.
Growing up, I was always trying to figure out what kind of man I wanted to become, and I'm still trying to figure out what kind of man that I want to become. I always knew I was different. I didn't know that there was a term for the type of person that I was. I went into my transition just wanting to be happy. I'm glad I am at the point where I'm able to shave. South, south, north, north, east, west, never in a hurry. Right.
One. Now, don't be scared. Don't be scared. Shaving is about being confident. Oh, you're doing fine. You are doing fine.
I'm at the point in my manhood where I'm actually happy. It's not just myself transitioning, it's everybody around me transitioning.
Now, honest answers. Was that the man anyone imagined? Give me some words of the type of man you imagined that was Gillette Man. No judgment, judgment-free zone here. Six-pack, I heard. Jason Momoa, yes. Haven't heard that one before, but yeah. But we probably all imagined a man who's six-pack, slick hair, drives a sports car, because that's what Gillette was saying to us for many years. That's the Gillette man. But with this campaign, they're still targeting men that shave. They're just looking at a trans black man. They've expanded their audience. They still told a story, which is what marketing's about, connecting with people. And they've done it intergenerational as well. Because I actually can't remember a Gillette ad where I saw a father teaching his son how to shave. And men in the room, if you had dads, did they do that? Is that a thing? Yeah, okay. I didn't learn, so, you know. But that's another aspect. That's that sparking that creativity. That's looking at the wider audience. And it's what the generations coming up want, is what they're used to. Have you seen the content on TikTok? It's all intersectional now, because that's what they know. And if you're not being aware of that, you're missing that audience. That 70% of millennials and Gen Z will change their mind on a company based on how it represents people, based on its values, and based on sustainability, which we do know about, we hear about. But marketing has the power to really tell stories. And these stories can be intersectional, can be different, and target the market that we want to reach. So, I've given you the story. Hopefully one person shed a single tear down the left cheek or right cheek. But what are principles? What is all this about? How can you implement and start thinking in this manner? First of all, my favorite, not because, you know, it's a horrible campaign, but it's a great example because they lost a lot of money. H&M. In 2018, H&M had a product line that went live where children were modeling jumpers that had slogans. The one little black boy in the campaign had a jumper that said, "Coolest monkey in the jungle." The other white children were survivalist experts. This did not go down well on the internet because they didn't consider the context of that content once it reached the public. They didn't consider how that would impact society. They didn't consider the narrative of a little black boy being labeled monkey. And this led to a lot of issues for H&M. They lost $4 billion from stock loss, from store damages, from their share pricing dropping from the backlash and outrage. The impact of this meant H&M had to do a lot of things they didn't consider beforehand. Now, that was a while ago, and they've done some things to kind of make it up, but they've done the same trait that everyone else done. They hired one person to solve all their diversity problems, as they do. However, they didn't hire someone specifically for the marketing team, because the marketing team needs to consider that context, needs to be part of that process. The other aspect of inclusive marketing is genuine representation. Now, this has changed over the past few years, and I do love it. But the Google Suites ad, actually, let's play a little quick quiz. Google Suites ad, is there anything you can see that's inclusive in that ad? Again, no wrong answers. Yeah. And with Google Suites in the business sector, you might not think, you might think business, corporate, everyone in a suit. For me, that ad showed up on my timeline. I am not a wheelchair user, but they still targeted me with it because people in wheelchair run businesses. Duh. Why does it need to be revolutionary? It should just be a thing. And this is also an example of how you can be inclusive in illustrations and think about different skin tones, different abilities, different people that you can represent. Oh, I always find saying this brand's name hard, Omi. Anywho, they're a period brand. The period movement has changed a lot recently. Anyone remember the Blue Blood campaigns where everyone's wearing white and they're frolicking? And as far as men know, we bleed once a month, the same time every month, and we're always happy, just get a chocolate. That's what the marketing's taught us, right? That's what the campaigns and all that has done over the years. They've built that idea in our head that that is what women go through, when half the population of Earth is women. But now the movement's looking a lot more realistic. There's a lot of campaigns out there that's representing that blood is red, people, by the way, to all the men in the room. I'm sorry to push the bubble. And people of all types have periods. Trans men who haven't fully transitioned, whether they want to or not, have periods. So it should be period products. And just represent different body types. It's not all happy-go-lucky. Some days fucking suck. And some days don't. Some people use tampons, some people don't. It's spreading that information and knowledge, but representing the people that use your products in a way that's realistic to their life. Now, I did make a joke about the chicken. And this one, I have to laugh, because I'm just like, really? Could they have not? So another principle would be to avoid stereotypes. Not all black people like chicken. Just saying, you know. Some black people are vegans, like, fucking hell, can you imagine? But avoiding stereotypes in your marketing is very important. They could have done so many things. They could have celebrated black-owned businesses that operate on Uber Eats and highlighted them. But they chose the quick and easy. Happy Black History Month, black person eating chicken. Reinforcing stereotypes. And with inclusive marketing, that's what you want to avoid. And if you're not sure something's a stereotype, I'll tell you this amazing thing. It's called Google. Literally, if you don't want to ask anyone and you're too afraid to hire me, even though I will just be honest and probably laugh about it, type into Google and it will tell you if it's a stereotype or not. Easiest way. It's not going to hurt anyone. It's going to help Google Analytics and help my data research. So just do that. And then a final principle is avoid appropriation. Now, before the unfortunate murder of George Floyd in 2020, there have been countless murders of black people in America. In 2016, there was an uprising and there was a protest. This photo on the right is an image from that protest. A black woman being arrested for peacefully protesting. She's standing there. The police are in combat gear. You can see the violence within that photo. Now, the one on the left is how Pepsi interpreted that protest with a Kylie Jenner or a Kris Jenner, one of the Jenners, or the Kardashians, where the police are in soft caps and Pepsi can solve everything. It did not go down well. Throughout the whole video, there's instances where they're trying to represent and say they support Black Lives Matter without saying that they do. They're trying to highlight and tiptoe around the subject matter without really saying anything. But what they ended up doing was just appropriating the whole movement, washing it out, removing all meaning, when they missed the opportunity to work with people who had powerful say within communities. There's even a point in the movie, in the commercial, where she chucks her wig in a black woman's face. And I was like, wow, interesting choice there. So when you're considering supporting a movement, because a lot of times when we think about inclusive marketing, we go straight to, let's support Black History Month, let's support, wow, brain fog. Let's support Disability Awareness Month, let's support LGBT Pride Month. But if you're going to support those months, and that's the only time you're going to do it, please do it with actual intent and action. Recently, with the murder of George Floyd, Pepsi actually didn't say anything. They pledged $5 million to support black communities, because they realized they needed to start with action before they said something. And that's, if you're going to support a movement, that's the awareness that you need to have. So, all these principles are nice to have, they're good to do, you know, we're thinking about it, the juices are flowing, creativity is there, and you're wondering, how could I do this in my job today? How could I go back to the office and sell, or how could I go and do something with this information? Wait, by the way, someone let me know time, because I will ramble. I invented a triangle, people. I really actually did. I was so excited when I came up with this. Anywho, this is inclusive marketing. You start with your inclusive strategy. Then you go on to visual representation and inclusive language, which basically that's what marketing is, you know. You plan it, pictures, copy, anywho. So starting with the strategy side of things. First off, you want to know where you stand. Conduct an audit. What an audit would look like is thinking about who your target market is, what is that persona, and doing some research on the representation within that. So say, you're marketing period products. What is the percentage of the generation that use period products? Is there differences between ages? How are we representing different ages? Are we representing different body types? Where do we stand now so we can benchmark to move forward? Shameless plug, if you need an audit, that's something I do. Then you want to check the accessibility on your website. John earlier spoke about alt text, which is great for SEO, but it's also great for accessibility. There's various ways that you can increase the accessibility of your website in terms of those with different reading styles and visual impairments. But that is something that's a long-term aspect. The reason it's in the strategy section is because you're going to improve that accessibility as technology improves. As technology improves, the things you can do to make your website more accessible will. So you want to check in on that probably every 2 to 3 quarters of the year. Just check in, run a test, run an audit to see how accessible is your website. But all of this should be underlined by research. What is your target market and who is in it? The chances are your target market will be diverse, but there's going to be percentages. Like period products. I am not going to advertise period products with people who do not have wombs. Doesn't make sense. I'm not going to start chucking in a bunch of people who do not have wombs on my website, but I might implement some information around trans men. But I will consider how I do that inclusively. Then you have your visual representation. This is the part that most of the things we relate to, the images we see. I don't know if anyone saw, there was a Sainsbury's ad a couple Christmases ago. I don't know if it was a couple because it was during the pandemic. Time is different pandemic time. Where it was a family, a black family, and they were having gravy and enjoying gravy, and that was a Sainsbury's ad, but the internet was in an uproar. How dare there be black British people that like gravy? Can't like sauces, and we're not vegan, just to let you know. But you can increase the inclusivity within your marketing through visual representation. So if you're a smaller business, you probably rely heavily on stock photos. And that's fine. There are websites that specialize in free stock photography for people from diverse backgrounds, disabilities, races. One of the ones, I should plug the one I did, sorry. I did one back in 2018 that could be found on the TechSpark website. There's also one by UK Black Tech. There's disability photos. There's a list of resources. We actually have a blog on it on our website, clearing all the resources that you can go and find those stock photos. But if you're big or you have bigger budget, you can also look at hiring models and influencers. There are, see, I don't know I prepared it. So these are 2 I recommend to find some stock photos. But there are also models and influencers from diverse backgrounds. There's an influencer agency that specializes in recruiting and managing talent from diverse backgrounds, modeling agency. ZB Talent specializes in disabled modeling talent. And I also love this campaign. Also, I have an obsession with period products recently. I don't know why. Period brand. You know, we just don't get used to saying the word period, and not in the sentence, just generally. This period campaign is actually a video. These twins are deaf and they use sign language in the video. I found it really interesting because they could have just hired them to be still images and not implemented that, but they decided to incorporate that with the whole campaign. So there's different ways you can consider the visual representation. There's also illustrations. As we saw with the Google Suite ad, you can illustrate different people in different backgrounds and probably have a conversation. If you have an illustrator or designer within your team, talk about what is the selection of skin tones that we're using? What is the selection of hairstyles that we're using? Are they all the same? Have we considered different types? Can we start implementing that into our work today? Ooh, and then for illustrations as well, there's an organization that I love that literally is called Black Illustrations. You can guess what they do, Black Illustrations. And then finally, as part of inclusive marketing, you have your inclusive language. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. This is the trickiest part because, as we know, language changes a lot, and it changes quickly. So it needs to be something that you're always checking. It needs to be a living document within your team. If you have a list of your company, brand guidelines and the types of words that you use, you should have language guidelines as well. What are the things that are hard-nosed? What are the things that you might use but you always have to check the meaning? Like right now, if someone sent out a tweet that said on fleek, I would be, you're in the wrong year. What are you doing? But words change over time, so you always need to check. And if you need to mention someone's demographic, be as specific as you can. So there was a lot of controversy last year about the term BAME, which is Black, Asian, Ethnic Minority, which is a bad acronym, by the way, because the E is actually meant to be before the M, but anyway. And a lot of copywriters came to me, and they were asking, oh, we don't know what to do. Should we use BAME? Should we not use BAME? And I'm like, I am the person that BAME is supposed to cover. I don't type that into Google, so why are you using it? Why are you using it? If I don't type into Google, you're meant to be targeting me. I don't understand. You can spell it out. Say who you're targeting, because I definitely type into Google, Black women hair care products. And that's what I mean by be specific when you can, but also check if you have to. As I've mentioned throughout this talk, I've mentioned people who have periods. I haven't specifically said every single time women who have their period and trans men who have their period or people with wounds. I've said people who have periods. Do I need to be specific? Not necessarily in that case. And finally, be open to correction. We live in the age of the internet. Someone will correct you. It's okay. It happens, you know. It's fine. There's no need to over-explain. There's no need, just like, yep, we noted, thank you. We will do better next time. We'll add it up and update our document. That's why your copy guidelines need to be something that's living and breathing, something that you check in. If a tweet goes out on your accounts and you're like, someone just dragged us for filth with this tweet, what do we do? Respond, note it, and do better next time. Because we're trying to undo a history that's been going on for years, and we've all been taught marketing wrong. A little controversial, but we have. Because we've been taught it in a way that benefits the people at the top and not benefits all. So it will take time. Again, period products. Told you I like this. Everyone should Google the cup as well. Amazing things. So big brands like Boots and Superdrugs have decided to change their language around feminine hygiene to period products. And I'm really happy for this because that time of the month, I don't want to be hearing about frilly feminine pinks. I don't give a fuck. I just want to get it and go. And it's more inclusive, and it's a simple change. Everyone who needs to know needs to know. So, what are we doing for time? Where am I? Okay, well, we're just going to be Q&A now. I want everyone to take your phones out and take a picture of this screen because this is your homework. I like to give homework. Yeah. Because I know I've said a lot of big things, I know I've said a lot of ideas, but you still have to go and actually do your job. It's like, there's a lot to change, but these things are easy things. Low-hanging fruit, very, very easy. You can even hack it and do it on your phone now. So, adding alt text to social media images. Alt text helps people who have visual impairments understand what's going on in the image. And on every social platform, except for the super niche ones that nobody cares about, like Reddit. No, maybe Reddit can't do it. But you can add alt text to images. Even recently, I got really excited about this. You can add alt text to GIFs, and clicking the alt text in a GIF is hilarious. Because what you see and how it's described is like, that's not the satire, that's not the funny we need. So that's something you can implement in your own life, just adding alt text to images as you put them out. And it's also an opportunity to add more copy where you're limited, like Twitter. Also, follow someone different to you. Is John in the room, Katie? I think so. Oh, how dare he miss my talk, damn it. Well, following someone different to you, what do I mean by this? Essentially, you want to find someone in your sector who's intersectionally opposite to you. The reason I asked for John is because he's in my sector, but he's intersectionally opposite to me. He's a bald, short, white man. He doesn't mind me saying that. I use him all the time, just to specify. It's consent. But the important aspect of this, he's in my sector. A lot of the times when people look into inclusive marketing, inclusion and diversity, they're just going to follow the latest activist or the latest person talking about it. But if they're not putting content out that you're interested in, it's not actually going to impact you. So if you're a copywriter, find a copywriter whose life is different to yours and follow and engage with their content. If you're a lawyer, are lawyers different? If you are a photographer, find a photographer who has different interests than yours. I really did skip over that lawyer one, wow. And then add in context to your website links. Now, some screen readers, and this is what I mean by the technology updates over time, some screen readers currently push all the hyperlinks to the bottom of your website. So when someone's using the screen reader and all your hyperlinks say here, all they're going to hear at the bottom of the website is here, 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 with no context. So you can hyperlink what the actual thing is. So if it's a link to More Fiber, is it? Sorry, got the company name ready. Full Fiber. Then link out the word, here's how to download, or here's how to increase your internet speed, and link the actual phrase rather than just the here. And finally, review your marketing personas. So if you're doing marketing personas or audience segmentation, whatever choice or preference you have, whoever created it, whoever's in the room, there's going to be some bias automatically applied to it. And by reviewing that and talking about it, bringing bias into the conversation, you can understand what point all the creative teams are coming from. So if I said Sally in HR, I'm sure some images popped in some people's hair, a blonde person with a bob and a red top. It's a stock photo that everyone uses. But if you're not talking about that, it's like, how else is Sally in HR different? How else can we reach Sally in HR? Is her name even Sally? Can we actually explore this a little bit more? So those are the things that I feel like you can do, not today because we're leaving here about 5, but tomorrow. You can implement at least one of these things, and that will be your first step towards inclusive marketing. And as I said, there's going to be a ton of time for questions, and I hope you all have one. So, questions. Yeah?
Just project the voice.
Oh, bring the microphone up.
Microphone's there. I'm really nice with the questions, by the way, guys. Don't be shy.
You touched on it a bit earlier. That's loud, isn't it? You touched on it a bit earlier with them deaf twins in the ad. But how do you go about representing people with qualities that aren't always visible, such as people in the LGBT community like myself, or people who have autism or some other condition in their mind?
So that's a really interesting one. I think that's more along the lines of the story. So when you're representing the LGBT community, a lot of the times you want to be able to share their story and share not necessarily their story in relation to their personality, but their story with your product. So if they're using a product and they're from the LGBT community, let's pick a product, not period, sorry. Let's pick cooking utensils. You can tell a story of an LGBT family cooking together and learning together, and that's a way to represent it. The other aspect is having them turn up as themselves fully. Because a lot of the times with campaigns, you can kind of want to gloss over and make something shinier and prettier. Just have them be their authentic selves. I think those are the two ways, especially if it's not visible, where you can represent and talk about it without it making it the whole thing. Because we don't want to shift the narrative of the campaign where it's now a campaign talking about how to help or donate or whatever, support. It's more so, this is the person we're talking about, this is how they use our service or product. Come on, people. I gave you homework at the start. But we're not here.
Hi, that was wonderful, thank you. So I run a business and I am a white young female, and in my branding photography I don't tend to use stock imagery, but I will have branding shoots done. How can I represent myself in a more diverse way when it is just me? Like, would you recommend having shoots and bringing external people in that would be more diverse? It's a challenging one when you're kind of a one-woman show, essentially.
Who's your target market?
Well, see, this is difficult for me because I would have said tends to be female, but that in itself might not be that inclusive. No. But yeah, typically speaking, it would be women and other entrepreneurs. I'm a B2B in terms of the business.
So your personal brand is you, and that will always
Correct,
be you.
Yeah.
The way you can diversify that is behind the scenes, maybe the photographers you hire, the things that you highlight, the products you use. However, and this is why I say it's marketing, because I'm going to say the stories you tell.
Yeah.
So talk about yourself, have the photography, keep that the same, because that's you. You're not going to change and fake anything aspect. But the influencers, the customers you work with, the women that you empower, look at who you can highlight in those stories. And if there is no diversity within that, look at who their role models are and start highlighting those individuals.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you think about the line between being inclusive and being tokenistic? How do you draw that line?
So that's a really interesting one in the sense of generally when things feel tokenistic it's because a company's done it once and never did it again and never spoke about it. So my kind of rule of thumb is the first time might feel that way, like most things it feels horrible. Yeah. But just keep doing it and keep changing it. So if you're going to do a campaign where you represent the LGBT community, don't consistently just represent white gay men. Change it up. Do some more. Look at the variety within that representation. But the other aspect of that is what's the intent? What's the intent behind including that individual or including those communities? Is it solely for the money? Again, we are marketers, it is for the money. But also, is it to support that community? Is it to highlight? Are they actually users of your product? Because the other aspect I do tell a lot of my clients is, you're not there yet, and that's fine. Or you solely market to this audience, and that's fine. It's marketing. If that's your sole audience and you're 100% sure, go with it. If you want to change, then you want to change. It's a different thing. But I don't think doing it just because if there's no business benefit and there's no values behind it, it's pointless.
How would you, oh that's actually really loud, isn't it? So if you're working in a brand that you might want to target little pockets of diversity, so for instance, Full Fibre, yeah, for the ones with the shit website. But I would say that there's big pockets of our audience that are middle-aged white males, and if I was to put a campaign out there that targets a mixed-race lesbian couple, I think I would absolutely terrify some of these old men and probably put them off the brand. So how do you target little pockets of inclusive audiences as well as trying to make sure you're not scaring away middle-aged white men?
I really want to give my troll answer, which is they're going to die soon, so anyways. That is not my answer. Don't sue me. On a serious point, you want to look at the audience segmentation in that aspect, because one thing is the data you have is because of what you've already put out there. So that's going to be a feedback loop you might be stuck in where you're like, if we put it out, it might happen. But until you do, you don't know. And then when it does go out and say there's backlash or whatever, that's a perfect opportunity to be like, what is our position as a company and what is our approach to it? That goes back to the alignment aspect. If the company values aren't there and you're like, we make good money from these old white men, keep making good money from them. They might not be around for long. Anyways, but if it's more so that we want to help everyone get better internet and we believe in internet equality and we believe in access and we believe in these things, start reflecting that, because to be honest, the backlash on those things, people get mad and they forget about it and move on to the next thing. But eventually, when we all adopt inclusive marketing, which is my mission, you have all been converted, it will be normal. And that's the goal. That's why marketing's broken, is because this is not normal. I have to come up and talk about this when it should just be the thing that we do. So I would say, check the data loop that you're in. Is it that you're getting that feedback because that's the only content you're putting out? Have you done any A/B testing? Have you done anything to see if there's a reach? Another aspect would be, look, if you're doing any kind of like postcode targeting, look at the population of the areas you're targeting, look at demographics of your users, and see if there's anything you can engage with that. And then finally, look if there's any stories within that target audience that is diverse. So is there any stories of older white men who might be queer that you can highlight? Is there any stories of older white men who might be disabled in some way that you can highlight? So there's diversity within that as well.
Right, thank you.
You know you have a question, Katie. Oop, one down front.
So if we want to increase diversity of our population, recruiting more diverse people, but we don't currently have a very diverse population, how do you avoid asking the very few people who are diverse to be the role models, to make yourself look more diverse kind of than you are, therefore to make people feel welcome, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm. So the employer brand, I've turned away many recruiters. I'm like, yeah, could you just help our employer brand but ignore the rest of the brand? And I'm like, no. The aspect is, highlighting people within the company is a good strategy for increasing employer brand. The situation that tends to happen is when there's only a certain number of diverse in talent, they become the people that are used over and over, even when they leave the company. If someone leaves your company, stop using their content, please. But having that transparent conversation with them, like, is this something you want to do? Because if it's a win-win situation for them of, I want to increase my personal brand, then they may want to be represented and be highlighted. The other aspect is a level of transparency. So one of the things we do is we audit clients' websites to say what is their visual representation. For example, if I was looking for a job, which I'm not, sorry, I would go straight to employer policies. If there's no diversity within the team, I'll go to the employer policies at the bottom of the page, and I would see what kind of policies they have, because that gives me a vibe on what they prioritize. So if there's nothing about accessibility, there's nothing about the Anti-Slavery Act, I'm just like, oh, okay, it's not top of that page. I'm not going to read these, but it gives me a hint of what the culture's like. And it also gives me a hint of what the culture's like, what people are saying and on LinkedIn about the company. So those are the aspects you can share in terms of, if you don't have a diverse team, look at what you can celebrate that's inclusive, look at the aspects that promote inclusion. So for example, flexible working and remote working is really inclusive for people with disabilities. We don't highlight it in that way. We're like, oh, you can work from home and sleep on your bed. No. It's beneficial for people who are homebound but still able to work. So highlighting in that manner that you are actively looking for people and these are the types of opportunities and these are the types of benefits you give to communities in general. So what do you have to offer, and frank conversations with the people that you have that are diverse. If we're good for good, I don't have £100 to give away, I'm sorry. But yes, feel free to reach out to me. I am Joyann Boyce everywhere. Recently joined TikTok reluctantly. It's addictive. I'm not going to sing any of the songs to get stuck in your head, but there's a Lizzo one that's really good. And just implement it in your day-to-day. It doesn't need to be scary, it's just part of what we do, and it's just a little bit of shift in our normal thinking of marketing. So thank you very much.